Hey all, Kunich here, back with another D&D horror story for you today. In this story, we have a user-submitted story by user P.Alucardq over in our Discord server. In it, we have a dungeon master that tries to treat things a little bit like D&D 1st edition, but in D&D 5th edition. And for those who are not aware of D&D 1st edition, let's just say that things are not going to be too fair for the players. With that all said, let's roll for initiative and begin the story. Okay, so I just got into D&D last year, 2019. I joined in the middle of a campaign that was being held over Discord and Roll20, and using 5th edition with some homebrew rules. The group I joined was fun, and we all had a blast, even ending the first campaign. And after a few months of one-shots, the DM started a second campaign taking place in the same world as the first one, just taking place 15 years later. The party had 5 players, a changeling sorcerer, me, a half-elf bard, a dwarf fighter, a hobgoblin cleric/wizard, and a human bard/sorcerer. The story of this campaign was great, though as you can see by the party makeup, most of us were squishy spellcasters, the only frontline fighters being the dwarf and the hobgoblin, so they would always take up the front, as the rest of us supported them from the back. We were on our way out of the Underdark when all this happened. As we were heading to the surface, we came across a giant spider's web. So, after some time, I can't really remember this part of the campaign that well, sadly, we had to fight some giant spiders. Not really a tough task, till my sorcerer threw a fireball in the web, burning it and revealing that all the giant spiders we were fighting were the babies of a spider that took up 6 by 6 squares. So yeah, for anyone who wants to know how the size system works in 5th edition, that meant that this spider was around the same size as an ancient dragon. But, through a lot of lucky dice rolls, we were able to kill all the spiders, even though the player who controls the dwarf couldn't make it. But, that wasn't the moment the DM tried to pull a TPK. That came later, after we made it to the city the dwarf in our group came from. We find out that last time the dwarf was here, they got into trouble. So for us to be allowed to pass through the city with no problems, our group agreed to take care of a problem the city has had in the mines. We thought that we would try to get a long rest before they would try to make us do this job. But anytime we tried to ask where a tavern was by our guide, he would seem to brush us off. Even after one of us, I don't remember who, got a high roll to find out, as the guide seemed to wander off, as the DM tells us that because we don't want to follow him, he was going to leave us. I was still somewhat new to D&D at this point, but even that kind of set off a red flag in my head. The reason we wanted to take a long rest was because we didn't get one after fighting all those spiders, and most of our spell slots were used, and we had lost some HP. I should tell you at this point that we were level 9. The DM liked using the monument system to keep us all at the same level, and to keep people from killing NPCs for no reason other than to get XP. So we caught up with the guide, and he led us to the mine. After going down in there, we started to follow the caves. But as soon as we got there, the DM had us all roll initiative. Needless to say, we were all stunned as we didn't understand as to why he had us do this, as we couldn't see any enemies. So as we kept going deeper into the mines, as the dwarf kept charging forward, the character just wanted to die a glorious death in battle, so they were normally going headfirst into battles. As the dwarf kept pushing forward, they came across a room that had broken boxes filled with smashed potion bottles, and a goddamn Neolithid in the room. Now, I know some of you were thinking, oh, a Neolithid for a level 9 party with 5 party members? That shouldn't be so bad. Normally, it wouldn't be. But we had lost some HP and spell slots in the last fight, and we couldn't take a long rest before doing this job, and the DM never told us we couldn't. Also, I should bring up that this DM did like to tweak the states for enemies, to make sure no one would cheat by looking in the book, and to also make fights a bit harder. And for this fight, because of all the potions the Neolithid was in, it got more than 1 turn per round. And when I say that, it got 4 turns per round. So a fight started as the dwarf was the first to find the Neolithid, and the Neolithid got to move first and swallowed the dwarf. So he was inside it for the whole fight as he kept failing to get out. So for the whole fight, our only main frontline fighter was the hobgoblin. who had only 1 level in Cleric and 8 in Wizard. Things were looking like all of us were going to die at this point. And it got worse as the Neolithid used a spell it knew, and the DM rolled to see if it would use the spell, and on who. And the spell got used on the Hobgoblin, and the spell was Feeble Mind. For anyone who doesn't know, this spell, if the targeted creature fails a saving throw, its intelligence and charisma get brought down to 1. So the Hobgoblin rolled to see if it would pass the save, and got a 3 on the dice. This is where things got really bad, because now our wizard couldn't use any of their spells from the wizard spells they knew. So at this point, we all believed that we were going to die, and I could kind of swear that the DM sounded happy with everything, even though the DM and the Hobgoblin were a couple in real life. But the player of the human in the group realized that they had a 4th level spell slot, and used it to cast Polymorph on the now dumb Hobgoblin, and used it to turn them into a T-Rex. The reason the DM allowed this was because in our first session of the campaign, we all started at level 6 or 7, we fought an undead T-Rex. So the DM couldn't say we never saw one before, as we kind of did. So my changeling and the human hid as the T-Rex ripped and ate the Neolithid, as the half-elf helped a bit. But in the end, our group killed the giant worm. The dwarf popped out of its neck, upset that they didn't die in the fight, and my character looked in the room the Neolithid was in and saw a giant purple thing just pulsing on the other end of the room. And my character, not wanting to take any chances, used their highest level spell slot to throw a fireball over there, making sure to burn the thing and make sure nothing else comes from it. The session ended with us heading back to the city, knowing we would need to find someone to fix the Hobgoblin. But the whole time after we won the fight, the DM just sounded defeated, almost like we did something to upset them. The next week, the guy playing the Hobgoblin in the campaign ran a goblin one-shot as most of the players couldn't make it. And it was at the end of the one-shot, the DM said that they were ending the campaign as they were getting bored of D&D 5th edition and didn't want the story to suffer. Looking back, it just feels like they were trying to push a total party kill on us and end the story so they didn't have to tell us that. As when they told us, they made it sound like they were only taking a break from DMing, but 2 or 3 months later, they closed the Discord server. I had known the DM for some time by then, and got the feeling that they just didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings by saying that they didn't want to DM anymore. But it would have been better that they were forward with it instead of doing what they did. End post. Yeah, I definitely agree with OP here. Players get really attached to the characters that they create for campaigns, and especially on a relatively long-running campaign, they're going to be really attached to them. And to a player, it's almost better if you just end the campaign, have everyone part ways or go to bed one night and pause the campaign or something to that effect, than to try to kill them. Because if you try to kill them, it's going to feel more personal than just talking with the players outside of the game to wrap it up. And I'm sure any reasonable player is not going to get mad if you just don't want to DM anymore. Heck, if you provide the notes to someone, maybe someone will take over. Their character can leave the group and you can come in as a player. Or if you just want to be done with it altogether, you can leave and the story can continue. There's a lot of better ways to handle it than just try to TPK the entire party. But yeah, Dungeon Master exhaustion is a real thing, and if you ever experience it in one of your games, see if anyone wants to try DMing a few one-shots or their own campaign for a bit, just to reset and get back into the rhythm of things. Anyhow, that's all for this story. As always, the source of the story is in the description below, as well as a link to our Discord server, which is how P. Alucard Q got a hold of me to link me this story. And if you liked the story and you want to see more videos just like this, be sure to hit the subscribe button and bell notification icon to be notified of my future videos. Now, while you wait for those future videos, here are a few related videos that you can watch from my channel.